Hello and welcome to Treasure in Every Verse. I'm your host, author and Bible teacher, Kevin Madison. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, friends, we're back and we're going to get right back to the church at Smyrna. And we're pretty close to wrapping up Smyrna, and we're going to be headed to Pergamos next and discussing all the things that the Lord had to say to that church. So let's look at this, folks. And we had went through and was talking about the blasphemy of the Jews, right? And we started here was talking about the things that they were doing. And part of that was the doctrine that the Jews, remember, this is the early church. Early church was made of primarily of all Jews. As a matter of fact, the beginning of the church was all Jews. All the apostles were all Jews. All the prophets that came from the Old Testament converted to the New Testament were all Jews. Let me help you with that. I mean, because this is important. You say, what does it matter? There are no Jews and Gentiles in the church today. Listen, folks. Listen, please. There's a transition that happened. You have to read the Bible the way the Bible is written. You can't just go into certain things and just yank it out of its context as if none of this other stuff mattered. It mattered. It mattered, okay? And let me show you. Here's the changes in the ages. And this is important. You really need to understand this. And this is what I tell you. If you don't know exactly what's happening in the scriptures, this is why people get confused. These are not the same events. So when you say innocence, when Adam and Eve was in the garden, there's a transition from innocence to what did they do? Well, when they sinned, okay? After Adam and Eve sinned, who was there? Adam and Eve, right? Adam seen, just put one name. So Adam seen two ages, friends. Here's the first age Adam seen, and Adam seen a dramatic change. Age 1 and age 2. Adam seen a dramatic change between those ages. Now, there was this another age that took place that was just as dramatic. Noah seen, it was the age of humanism, where everybody did what's right in their own eyes. So who's seen this? Noah. And then after the flood, it was government. God allowed the age of government. So Noah seen two ages, friends. The sun and the moon, the stars, and the climate was totally different here versus here. Totally different. The sun and the moon and the stars were different here than it was here. Everything was perfect here. Everything was perfect here. Everything obeyed Adam. They got here. Adam and Eve were absolutely, positively shocked. They couldn't believe the change that happened to the world. Couldn't believe it. Noah, the same thing. When Noah planted anything here, there was no, the fermentation took forever. Why? Because the climate was different. The ground was different. Everything was different. After the flood, it was rare people started living a long time. Why? Because the climate changed. Who changed it? God changed it. It's the process of futility. The process of futility. What happened? The curse brought about what the Bible calls futility. It's a process of decay, friends. It's a slow process. God is restraining it. And he unleashed it here. It progressively got worse until here, and then in the flood. It got even worse here. And guess what? It's been the same, just a slow, gradual decay since this day, since Noah got off that ark. But in the tribulation, God is going to remove all of his restraint on the curse on the earth. And you're going to see some crazy events, friends, because of sin and futility. He's going to cut nature loose based on its own sin and curse. And it's going to be something that's never been seen before. So the people in the tribulation are going to see the same. Now, back to what I was saying. Then you have the law. And you have grace. Who's seen this? The disciples seen it. And the prophets seen it. There were prophets, folks, during the day Jesus was on the earth. Do you understand that? There were prophets in Israel, a lot of them, during the day when Jesus was on the earth. And then he chose disciples. Why? Why didn't he choose the prophets? Because they were part of the Old Testament. And he wanted the apostles to lead the group versus the prophets. The prophets were coming to an end. Now, what happened? The disciples became, under grace, apostles. Were they apostles back here? Of course not. Did they have the same ability back here? Of course not. Did they have the same authority? Of course not. Why not? Because they were under the law, and there was no such thing as disciples under the law. God didn't use disciples, God used prophets. And only while he was present on the earth and gave them authority at certain times, it's the only time when he sent them out that they were able to do anything like that. You see, friends, that's the order of scriptures. Now, these prophets also transitioned. They remain prophets. They were Old Testament prophets that moved over into the church. Yes, and they were all Jewish. Every single one of them. So when he says the foundation, this group right here, that Paul calls the foundation of the church, who is he talking about? He's talking about these Jewish prophets and these Jewish apostles that came out of the Old Testament. Is he talking about prophets today? No, because there are no prophets today. Is he talking about apostles today? No, because there are no apostles today. Why not? You can't have us building on a foundation if the foundation is currently being built. The Bible makes it clear that the prophets and the apostles, friends, are the foundation. They're not part of a foundation. They are the foundation, with Christ being the chief cornerstone. I don't know about you, but when you come to construction and you put something down, you put a foundation first. And you start building up on top of it. There are no prophets today, friends. There are no apostles today. I know they have people running around saying what they are, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I'm just going by what the book says. The book says there's a foundation. How many apostles were there? There were 12. How do I know that? Because Jesus says, I chose them. And he said in Revelation that the gates and the foundation are going to have 12 tribes. So many tribes of Israel there were 12. You say, oh no, that was 13, 14. No, it wasn't 13, 14, it was 12. How do we know? Because when you get to heaven, he says they're going to have 12 tribes of Israel on the gates. In the city that we're going to be living in, it's going to have foundations. In the name of to 12 apostles on the foundation. How many apostles God said? 12. D12. All right, anyhow, I'm not into that. So what's my point concerning then this transition? You need to understand that when you have a transition like that, that's why the apostles struggled with this in the beginning. They were familiar with the law. Noah struggled with it. He got drunk. Back here, he didn't get drunk. Why? Because the ground was different and the grapes that it produced were different. He thought it would be the same. When he made it, it fermented really, really fast and made him drunk. I know a lot of people like to say Noah was a drunkard. No, he wasn't no drunkard. Noah was a righteous man. You mean righteous men don't drink? No, righteous men don't get drunk. Because that's what people try to claim that Noah was. No, he wasn't. They don't understand the transition that happened in the climate between the time Noah was alive and the time after the flood. If they understood that, they wouldn't be going around saying Noah was drunk or a drunkard. All right, so that's what I'm trying to tell you. You need to understand this. And then you won't be pulling stuff out of its context. So when I'm talking to you with a knowledge base of this kind of stuff. You're going to have now, the final transition is going to go from grace, well, not the final, to the tribulation. And then you're going to have a tribulation to the millennium. You see? Things are going to be dramatically different from today to the tribulation. The sun is going to be different. The moon's going to be different. The stars are going to be different. How do you know that? Because the weather's going to go crazy. That's how I know that. What controls the weather? The sun, the moon, the stars, no wind. So what's going to happen? God's going to remove the restraint. It's going to get to the point to where the sun is going to scorch people and burn them almost to death. Yes, the moon's going to get dark. And it's going to be nighttime, without light. It's going to, the weather is, so what happens when he strike half the sun? What do you think is going to happen? When he strike a third of the moon, that controls the tides. What do you think is going to happen? Remember he said, I set a wall on the waters so that when I set that wall, the waters beat up on it and it stays behind. It goes right back to where it came from. It's not going to go back this time, friends. It's going to come out and it's going to remain out. So what am I saying? Look, that's transitions that happen. Same thing here. He's going to revert in the millennium period. It's going to come all the way back to that. Almost. Not 100%, but almost. So friends, listen. You need to understand the transition that happened in the ages. All right, now let's get to our stuff.